Are we looking keen up?
So I believe we are live. Just want to get our production to verify that we are live.
It's a good.
Okay, thank you so very much. Welcome, 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 welcome. My name is Mary Campbell, and I am the President and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. It is my honor and pleasure to serve as our host, a very, very delightful conversation that I am so power shift that took place in Georgia on January 5th, 2021. We have some of the baddest sisters, brother, who made that history, along with many others that we know that were part of that in coalition. And so today, what we're going to do is have a conversation about what happened. We know on this historic day that power shift that I mentioned, made something historic happen. The first African American, Reverend Raphael Warnock, was elected by the people of Georgia to represent and serve the state in the U.S. Senate. We also know that John Ossoff, the son of Jewish immigrants, was also elected to represent the state of Georgia in the U.S. Senate for such a time as this. And so we know the power in. Partially speaking, we just talking facts, y'all. Just talking facts. We were able to the black vote, young people voting and turning out, not just as they did in November, the general election for the presidential election, but actually being able to ensure that our people turned out for a runoff, which is very, very difficult for those who've been doing the work. So we're excited about that. We know that the balance of power that has been impacted, this new administration that will be sworn in January 20th, with the election of Joe Biden as the next 46th president of the United States, and Kamala Harris, U.S. Senator Kamala Harris, who was elected as the first woman, first African American and Asian descent woman to vice president. So much history has been done, and a whole lot of it came through the South. And again, thank you all for all the work that you did. And generating this Black voter turnout, we know, was not because of the efforts of any one person, but due to the hard work and daily grinding of many, many people on the ground in Georgia who led that work, especially, again, Black women and young people. Much of this effort did not start just before the general election in November, but has been in the works and building for years and years. Today, we are truly blessed because virtually, we have the collective leadership of some of those who put in that effort on the ground in Georgia and saved our democracy from peril. And I don't say that lightly, especially after what happened last week in DC. And they are here to discuss what they did and how they did it, what it means to the people of Georgia, as well as all Americans, and why we cannot let place in Washington, DC at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th deter or hold us back from having a truly small c Democratic representative. And
I saw them as election protection volunteers. I saw them working in organizations like GCPA, Georgia Stand Up, and the HBCU Green Fund, and many more, getting involved in the political process and just assisting. And I want to say that I've never seen this many young people involved politically. And I think that, you know, we've talked within the organization a lot regarding power shift. And I think young people are realizing their political power. And the young people in Georgia showed the country, you know, that they had something to say, specifically young Black people. And so I'm just proud that we are truly walking in our destiny, work that we've been putting in, you know, for years. I've been a part of the People's Agenda since I was like 9, right? So like this work has really been going on, and I'm like 22, 23. So this work has been happening for a very, very long time, and I'm so excited to see it paying off. And I know that I know that young people are going to show up again in 2 years. So now we have to just get back to work, and start working on that foundation.
Thank you.
No,
Ariel,
I too am
Ariel,
very
and then
excited. I'm happy. I mean, it's just amazing just to see the work. And like Mary Pat pointed out early on, it wasn't just one or two women. It really was a collective. And hearing just things in our office and having those same type of momentum where it's just not about one person adding to it, but really seeing how different people and different women can come together and to add to really change this power. And not only that, just seeing, like she said, young people, but even seeing young influencers really take their voice and really show a way that this is the time that where political conversations were faux pas and you just didn't talk about it. Now you're seeing that's the conversation now at the table. It's the conversations in the car. It's the conversation now in Clubhouse. I mean, we're just doing it, and it's just exciting just to see. And it's just a pleasure, and I'm very thankful, especially as a young woman, to just have multiple women like you guys and yourself to not only hold our hands, but to really propel us forward to be able to be ready for this power shift. You know, we were shifting power and also getting ready for the next movement. So I'm happy, I'm excited, and I'm also just eager and ready to see what's next.
thank you, Jared.
You know, I'm a preacher, so I typically have a lot to say, but in response to, you know, actually seeing so many Black organizations in Georgia coming together to save our democracy from peril and shift power in DC, I've only got two words, and that's unbelievable and inspiring. Unbelievable, not in the sense of it not being possible, but unbelievable in the sense that we knew all this time for years that the Black vote mattered. But now we saw so many Black people believe it for themselves and do what they knew that they could do to activate that power. And they went out there and they voted. They did it again. And inspiring. I feel as though I was a part of history. I feel as though many Black people also feel as though they were a part of history. Why? Because we actually did make history. And I believe that it's inspiring because it has an effect, and it's going to continue a momentum that's going to drive Black people continuously to the polls, that they're not going to just, you know, be satisfied with this election on the 5th, but they're going to continue to be engaged. They're going to continue to get out there and vote, and they're going to be connected with their community and recognize that they can be a part of political power.
Thank you, Jared. Now, you all have said some things, and one of the things that's a thread that I kept hearing too, and that was like that power shift. And so, how tangibly do you believe that these results are going to help build and expand Black political power in Georgia? And I know you all worked in coalitions. Tell us some of the things that happened. What were the coalition building and organizing lessons learned? Because Georgia is a blueprint. It is a case study of what we can do when we make up our minds. And despite all the odds, despite COVID-19, despite all of the voter suppression, all the things that we know have been happening in Georgia, and that you all still were able to overcome those odds. And so I'm going to mix it up a little bit intergenerationally. So I'll start off with, why don't we start off with one of our younger people, Mary Pat, then we'll go to Felicia, and then we'll just kind of mix it up. So Mary Pat, what are the things that you feel we did to build Black political power in Georgia? And what about the lessons learned? And we can be round robin on this one.
One thing that I can truly say is we allowed young people to lead. And what I mean by that is we saw organizations do what they've been doing, and we saw them also allow young people to incorporate new modern ideas, like some out of the box pop-ups. People were raffling off PS5s and Jordan gym shoes. Like, there was a lot of work strategically focusing on young people of color. And I think that was one thing that we did. Another thing that we did was we really worked we targeted young people specifically, working to get them involved in things like election protection. I know at GCPA, we partner with organizations like RISE, and a few other organizations too. Like, we paid students $200 just to show up to a training to do election protection, and then ensured that they had, you know, food and things to actually be election protection monitors, right? And like, students were like, well, I didn't even know, you know, what an election protection was, or I didn't know what ballot curing was, and like allowing them opportunities to grow and lead. And so I think that that's something that we kind of did differently than other states. And, you know, Georgia's just different. You know, I know a lot of people are going to try, but I think there's something in the Georgia water. And that's
You
why
gotta
we
share the love.
continue
You
to
gotta
make
share
this.
the love. No, no, no,
We
no.
have
You
to.
gotta share the love, girl. You gotta share the love. Felicia, then I'll go to Helen and Deborah, then we'll come back around.
Well, we know, Melanie, that Georgia is famous for growing peaches. And so what we did, and I think what we learned, is how to support one another. But we worked so hard and shared so much information. And then we covered our lanes. We covered our territory. So if I had Clay County and Deborah and Helen statewide. And what happened was we did all the work, young folks, women. We can't leave out the Black Male Initiative. We knocked doors, we made calls. And on the last day, we bumped into one another because it was done. It was done. And so in the final hour, because we had covered everything possible, but in order to do that, first of all, we can do more with more, although we did the most without it. Number two, we have to coordinate and share information, and we lifted one another along the way. So if I was somewhere and Helen was there and Deborah was missing, we mentioned Deborah. If Deborah was somewhere and we were missing, and if Latasha Brown rolled in or Stacey Abrams or anybody else, we were one Georgia in terms of Black women. And I will not, we can't go forward without saying what the men did. So I think Deborah and Helen would agree, and I'm sure Jared, but the Black Male Initiative came out the box. And you know, that's John Taylor, so that's one of your own as well. Somebody else that we groomed, but we went hard. So that's kind of the takeaway, and I'll stop there.
Okay, Helen and Deborah.
Well, I could say I think they covered it all basically, but what we did was incorporate, as Mary Pat said, a lot of new techniques. We had to pivot from our regular outdoor, doing door-to-door, hand-to-hand combat. We had to pivot at a moment to doing things digitally, doing digital organizing, learning how to incorporate those new techniques. But most importantly, I think the most important thing that besides coalition building that you've always taught us, the other things that I think is we had trusted messengers in a lot of communities. Albany, Jeanette is much better at speaking to people in Albany than I do because I don't live there. So she could talk to people in Albany. Carrie could talk to someone in Savannah. Eric could talk to Macon. Linda could talk to Athens. Diana could talk to LaGrange. Tracy could talk to Augusta. So wherever we were, we had trusted messengers that could organize, that could relate to the issues that were important in those areas and highlight and inform. We used a lot of methods to educate voters. We had to go back to our door knockers. We went to billboards. You name it, we did it. Whatever it was to get people engaged, we did it. And that's what I'll say. And I'm sure Deborah could add so much more to it, but we had those trusted messengers is the best thing I could say.
Thank you. Yeah. Deborah, then we'll hear from Ariel and Jared.
Yeah, well said, Helen and Felicia. I think one of the things that was different probably than some of the other coalitions is we didn't build this coalition just for this election. we were already in coalition together. This was not new to us. This was not the first time we have worked together. We have all been connected for years and years and years. And many of us are students of Reverend Orange and Reverend Lowry. And so some of the strategies and tactics that we do naturally, the reason why, as Felicia said, we were in rhythm is because we were trained by the same kind of value system of you hit the streets and you go deep and you knock on doors and you talk to people and you work with each other and you build coalitions and you continue and rinse and repeat and continue to do it, and you bring along young people so that they can learn as you're going. And so we all empowered the young folks around us, gave them budgets, gave them opportunities to present their own programs for the collective. So leading and teaching at the same time, sharing resources, building collective coalitions and expanding our coalitions, I say is one thing we have to do. Embracing technology. I think COVID-19 told us that we all needed to be able to get more proficient online and do Zoom meetings. So we did virtual voter registration and virtual town hall meetings, Helen, and virtual events, because that's what we had to do. So what I would say is we shifted and pivoted every step of the way. If they threw a roadblock or voter suppression tactics, we just kept moving and said, okay, they're going left, we're going right. And so I think that's part of what the lessons learned in this, because there is no secret formula of what we did differently than other people, other than we invested in Black women, we trusted Black women, we allowed for coalitions to do their work and to share, and we brought the next generation with us. So we're gonna be all right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Ariel, and then Reverend Jared.
Wow. So it's not really much you can say after that, but it's just absolutely right. And like Ms. Scott mentioned, it wasn't just, the coalition wasn't built just for the election. These were things that were already there. So I think it's something to point out that it wasn't the coalition, but it was how to move in the coalition during a time where we had so much social unrest, and also we were dealing with a pandemic. And so being innovative is one of the things that is a lesson that we learned during this election season and how we can do it. So as I said, we didn't stop knocking on doors, but how we knocked on doors was a little different. We didn't stop reaching people, but how we did it safely, but also added to it. Not only were we giving you the information that you needed to get to the polls, but we were also making sure that you were doing it safely. So that's good to point out, even with the youth, building the youth up and teaching them as they go, making sure that they understood that they are not only the ones that are safe to do it. This is the safe, being able to trust in a time where at most time the risk is lowest on the youth, and having us go out there, being able to actually take on that responsibility and move the way that we needed to move. And I think that was the biggest lesson that we learned, was just being innovative and using the resources that we already had there and making it new.
Thank you, Ariel.
Yes, coalition building, I think we found to be really important. Not only were we dealing with voter suppression last year and so on and so forth, but we're also dealing with a global pandemic that no one was prepared for. So we had no choice but to be innovative. We had no choice but to come up with new, fresh ideas, how we could reach people, how we could make sure that the messaging is getting to the people. And so, we learned that coalition building was important because no one person can do it all. No one organization can do it all. We all have strengths, and we have to come together so that we can simply get the job done. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about reaching the people. It's about registering voters. It's about making sure that people made their plans to vote. And if we worked on each other's strengths and came together, we realized that we would do better working together than we would just trying to move in some type of a solo fashion.
Thank you. Now I'm going to shift over one of my questions, so I'm not going to go into that. You kind of really told us like what were some of the ways, what you did to the things that worked. But also, elections are about the issues. Yes, sometimes the candidates, but most of the times it's about issues. So I want to ask Jared, Ariel, and Mary Pat, got the letters on it, the Gen Z and millennials, right? The young people, the young leaders. What do you think were the key issues that drove Black youth to turn out in this election? So Jared, Ariel, and Mary Pat.
Things like student loan forgiveness, things like economic disparity. We saw how trillions of dollars was given to businesses, but many small businesses did not receive that funding. Seeing how, the $2,000 checks or $1,200 checks or $600 checks would help people. I think the issues that were right in front of young people that we saw hand in hand, healthcare, et cetera, I think these were things that really motivated young people as issues to get out the vote.
I would second that motion. I mean, it's just, I think, like you said, right in front of you, but not only was it right in front of you, these are things that are directly affecting you as a youth, being able to be civically engaged and moving into your time. So actually understanding and seeing how your government and democracy is responding to the things that are affecting you directly. Being able to see moving from protest to politics to power. I mean, just all of these issues right there, and seeing them and pointing them out is something that really just lit a fire in youth, particularly this past year, and promoting them to do what was right for them politically.
Absolutely everything that they said, but I do want to highlight just what we saw from young people. In November, a lot of people asked, about the different candidates, and this is nonpartisanly speaking. And one thing that I would always say is, well, we've already seen what the current president, how he feels about movements that young Black people care about, like Black Lives Matter and student loan forgiveness and funding for historically Black colleges and universities. And the same thing right here in Georgia, we did have 2 current sitting senators, and we were able to see in the middle of a pandemic how they felt about providing Georgians with affordable health care. We were able to see how they felt about college affordability. We were able to already see those things. And so I think young people were able to just see how people felt about different issues that were important to them, and they voted in their interest. And again, that's nonpartisanly speaking. But I believe that a lot of people are starting to realize and give these young people credit, because this is a generation that people felt like, only cared about music and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. But those same young people just months ago literally organized and rallied for more than a month, 2 months straight, to bring awareness to a lot of issues that were crippling their communities and what they were experiencing. And a lot of people would say on these calls, and I know you all probably heard the question, do you think young people are going to show up this time? Do you think young people? And every time I was asked that question, absolutely. And what we saw in November and what we saw in January were those same young people raising hell at a Capitol Hill 2 to 3 months ago, got up and raised hell at the ballot. And they made sure their voices were heard again. And so I'm so proud to be a part of this generation. And I'm just so proud of young people for really, again, embracing that political power that they now have.
Thank you for that. Now, sisters, Black women, we are the secret sauce. Everybody knows it. That's my favorite thing. We are the secret sauce because we not only turn out our in numbers, we bring everybody else with us, but we also vote our issues. So I want to ask you all, Deborah, Helen, and Felicia, what would motivate Black women, right, to really, what were our issues? What were we concerned about as Black women to turn out for that? Not just turn out in November, which we did, but what was else? Was it the same issues? Was it something else that was happening? What was happening with Black women? What made us do our thing and elevate our secret sauce on steroids in Georgia for the runoff?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we did as a collective is we tapped into the pain and the power of Black women. And so when we were on the phones or in the communities, we're talking about what are your pain points and what policies do you want to see when you're in pain? So whether it's lack of COVID-19 tests or even disparities about who's going to get the vaccine, health care, paid leave for all. As we're talking about kitchen table issues, we're talking to Black women about the issues that affect them and their families and how that translates into political power. So the conversation starts with, how you doing, Miss Jackson, and how is your family? One of the things that's different about the way Black women organize is we care about each other, and that's demonstrated in how we talk to each other and how we work with each other. So when we're talking to them on the phones, we're asking about how they're doing before we're asking them to vote. We're telling them where COVID-19 tests are and where free food giveaways are. We're telling them about events that are happening in their neighborhood so that they know that it's not just about needing you to show up for somebody else. It's about needing to show up for you and your families. We talk to them about the nephews and the cousins and Tyrone and criminal justice reform. We talk to them about the income disparities that are happening all over the country, but even in a city like Atlanta, this is the world's worst, or the country's worst income disparity city. We talk about what's happening in the families, and then we relate that back to why they need to vote and how policy is made because people are counting how many people are voting. And we need to make sure we're in the game and at the table so we're not at the menu. So we spoke to them from the heart and we gave them our heart in return. And in return, they know we're going to be there for them. These are not fly-by-night organizations. We're going to be here this year, next year, and the year after, because we know this is about building a continuum of power. It's not just one time. Power concedes nothing without demand. So now we have a demand list. Now we have an agenda, and we're saying we're coming for you because we have the receipts. But also the legislature is happening. Everything's happening in Washington. But we don't want people to forget the power of Black women, because just like people put you in, we will take you out if you don't speak to the cabinet positions and the Black women that need to be on every level of government, from the cabinet on down to the regional offices. We're focusing now on what's happening on the regional level and how these resources are going to be spent. This is not a game for us. We are in it. Voting and getting the vote out was just a part of the process. The next process is having the agenda and then holding them accountable. We go right into the municipal elections. So this is just the beginning. If people thought we did something then, they need to see what we're going to do next.
All right, I'm ready to roll, sis. I'm ready to roll. All right. So I think Helen or Felicia, I can't remember whichever one want to go next. Thanks, Tim.
Well, I'll go next. I will say that women have always taken care of its community and of our community. We've always exercised our power. I think we've helped bring along a lot of people this time. If you look at the voting history in Georgia, Black women have been one of the highest turnout demographics ever in the state. So we understood the power, but we understood this time it was more critical from a life perspective for our kids to have education. They're being schooled at home, not having broadband so that they can get their lessons, not having childcare because I'm out of work now. I have to stay home to take care of my child. I have to take care of my parent. I have to take care of my niece. So Black women have always had power. They understood that, but it was critical this time. They saw their children being brutalized by police. They saw that the disparities in healthcare. They saw the inequities in economic empowerment. They're not making a livable wage to keep a house over their children's head. So those issues were really driving them to be engaged more than ever. And they had to bring along other people with them. So it's been said, but to me, the Black women have always demonstrated our power, but this time it was more critical for us to ensure that everyone else came along with us.
Thank you, Helen.
So if I had to really narrow it down or capture in one basket, racial justice seemed to permeate everything. Because when people say COVID, if you think back, it was a Black face. It was the face of COVID starting out. And if you think about education, it's the Black mom that doesn't have the job that she can work from home on the computer. So, her challenge, as Ellen mentioned, with childcare, well, what do you do when you have a couple of kids? You have to still go to work. You don't have leave and there's no school. So that racial justice and Black women, that Fannie Lou Hamer, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. When we were watching our children in the street talking about Black Lives Matter, that's a very profound thing for a Black mother to witness beyond the George Floyd piece, right? So all of that racial justice and how it permeates everything. So yes, we were talking about criminal justice, economic justice. And then lo and behold, we're now talking about justice. And some folks finally are seeing what we were talking about. That this thing, we're not treated the same in this democracy. And so, but on the ground, our community understood it. And then there was something about jobs. And I have to say, Melanie, where you invested in Clayton County, when nobody saw Clayton County, and that's just the fact, there was nothing else here in terms of organizing to get out the vote. And the workers, we work with people who had been out of work since March. And they gave more than we could have ever paid for, more than we could have ever asked, because they embraced the mission. And that was infectious. So with racial justice beating down on the Black community in ways in which some of us that have the luxury of working from home if necessary, would never have experienced until we hit those streets. But thanks to Helen and Deborah, we delivered PPE. So when we knocked on the door, we didn't just give you a door hanger that says go vote or an app or a QR code. No, we left you a little bottle of water, a little snack to eat, a mask. If you don't have one, you can't come out. Some gloves so you could be protected. We were caring and the care came back. But it was racial justice. It was on the ballot for Black women.
Thank you, Felicia. Jared, I'm going to bring in, I know that wasn't what I sent you, but it just, I meant to send that to you. The brothers showed up. Y'all took a lot of heat, right? Took a lot of heat. And tell us what was on the brothers' mind? Because when we did that exit poll after the November 3rd election, what we found out was the issues for Black women and men, young, seasoned, in between, we all pretty much racial justice and racial injustice, if you will, are still key across the board. That was a key number one issue, still is, right? And while we want to be making sure we, like Deborah talked about, we're going to cash in them receipts. We're coming to cash that check, to make sure that the issues that our people voted for are addressed across the board. The Democrats now control the House, the Senate, and the White House. So we don't want no excuses. COVID-19 or not, we will have to make sure that we hold all of our elected officials accountable. So what about the brothers? What was it that got them to show up?
Well, yeah, Black women have always showed up. It was time for the Black man to finally show up and to show out. And what I noticed is I was having conversations specifically with Black older men, going to HBCUs like Morehouse, Clark Atlanta, et cetera. I remember speaking with the president of Morehouse College about maybe a month or two ago while we were out trying to get out the vote. And he said, perhaps what people have not taken into consideration is that Black men may not necessarily show up for, let's say, what would be traditionally anticipated to be showed up, but they will show up for each other. So they might not show up to the polls, but they'll show up to the polls if they feel as though they're showing up for each other. And so what I started to do, you know, when we were out there canvassing and getting out the vote and talking with my Black brothers, especially those who were older than me and those, because I'm only 23 years old, you know, look, if you don't want to get out there and vote because you don't trust the system or you don't believe in this or you don't believe in that, do it for me. Do it for me because I'm counting on you. Do it for our Black sister to ensure that what happened to Breonna Taylor cannot happen to another Black female anywhere in this country. Do it for the young Trayvon Martin, the young Mike Brown. Do it for the George Floyd, who wasn't afforded the opportunity to continue in his life because of racial injustice. Do it for that. And when we started to communicate like that, Black men began to understand the volatility, the power, and the importance of their vote, that they just could not in this election afford to sit back and just let things go by and you know, let just things go business as usual. They had to get out there and vote because they were doing it for us.
Thank you, thank you. We're gonna do a quick round robin question. We talked about lessons already, right? But then, what would you tell other states that they should think about in taking Georgia as a case study? I believe it truly is, and the things that can happen in the South, because I always believe in that when the South shifts, so goes the country. And so just if you had a quick round robin, and what would you tell other states or share with other states that you feel are good, one or two quick lessons learned? And anybody can jump in and respond to that question.
Melanie,
Everybody, but you know, at least two or three of you all.
I want to jump in and just say, part of that lesson comes from the Black Women's Roundtable. If we stop and think, we got incredible support from Michigan, Pennsylvania. We got support from Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. And we got that support virtually, whether it was phone calls and text messaging. And then nobody thought Georgia was possible. So now that we know Georgia is possible, we also know the South is possible. So together, as we really bring our Southern strategy that we've had and we've worked on for some now decades, now we can bring that Southern strategy to life. And so the lesson is, when we do all we can for our community with their interests at heart and bring them into the equation, we will win. No matter how the election goes, we will win. Sometimes we'll win the election. But if we do what we did, we already won. When we put our sneakers up on Tuesday, January 5th, we had won. Now the results gave us another kind of advantage. So I say the Black Women Roundtable model that Michigan, Pennsylvania, how much love, Ohio, you know, that really lifted us when we might have been a little bit tired.
I think that's so good, Felicia. Really supporting Black women and Black women supporting each other was really part of that secret. If you say sauce, I would say the roux, right? Because you got to put a lot in the roux. I think you, between the Black Women's Roundtable and Win with Black Women, we saw support across the country from not just Black people, but particularly Black women, but other people as well. They showed up in different ways, from the little cards to donations. We appreciate all of that. But what was more special, I think, for us is to have the support without even asking, from other Black women, you know, that say, we'll make calls for you, we'll do texts, we'll do all of that. So I would give back by saying, we have learned some things, that we'll teach a master class on coalition politics and how we work together and we tough it out and stick together and we win together. Also, that we have to invest in coalitions now, not just when the election happens, not just 6 months before. I mean, deep investments. These organizations are 501c3s that, not necessarily that we were always struggling, But the point is that if you wait until the end, when you really need Black women, and expect them to keep being there for you without cashing in those receipts, those days are over. So invest in those coalitions now. Funders need to invest in those coalitions now. We need to invest in those coalitions now, but then also we need to invest in the tools that we need. It was helpful to have the van and the minivan. It was helpful to have walk lists. It was helpful to have PPE kits. It was helpful to have text bankers. All of those things that maybe some smaller organizations or coalitions that don't quite have that yet, I would say let's invest in the technology and the tools that they need, and then the training and leadership development now. So then when the next place, whether it's Alabama or California or Mississippi or wherever, we're not starting from scratch. We already know what we needed to shift and pivot. So we can give them that list. So I want us to share and share and share and keep lifting each other up, because we have to grow the buffet versus fighting over a piece of pie.
Thank you, Deborah. I think I saw Jared raise his hand. Jared?
Yes, ma'am. Georgia is different. Like Mary Pat said, maybe it's just something in the water here. I don't know. But what happened in Georgia can happen in other states. Southern states like Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, South Carolina can replicate the success that we saw in Georgia. A few things that I would suggest, just from me being a millennial and watching and seeing what I've noticed, first, to really keep going and pushing hard, even when things in the past have not gone the way that you've expected. We saw what happened in 2018 during the gubernatorial election, where there was record-breaking voter suppression. But instead of internalizing and becoming bitter or discouraged and saying, oh, I'm not gonna vote, that's an unfortunate situation, leaders like Helen Butler and Deborah Scott and Felicia Davis and others said, we have a plan to get this state in order. And so I really echo what Ms. Scott said. Really sharing and uplifting each other, I think, is something that other states can do. Understanding the importance of working together and coming to where the people are. I noticed that most people avoid politics, like in the state of Georgia, because they feel as though it protects them. But when you come to where people are, they realize that avoiding politics does not protect you. Engaging in politics through the vote liberates you. It's really getting out there to the people, coming to where they are, letting them know there's an agenda on the table. Here are the issues. We don't need to tell you who to vote for. Here are the issues. You will know who to vote for. And don't worry, we have a plan to hold those people accountable once you put them in.
Thank you, Jared. And one more response, and then we're going to move to the next question.
Well, Melanie, I think we have to also teach people the process of voting, what is involved in voting, and all these other things that we talked about certainly are key ingredients, the tools, the leadership development, all of that. But we've got to break it down. Here's how you vote. You can vote by this way, this way, this way. Here's what's involved in that process. We've got to make it simple, to make it so that people understand it's not this big bear that is going to overcome them. It's something that is easy that they can do. We've got to make it a culture. We've got to understand collectively, this is a culture that we together can do. It won't happen overnight. In any other state, it took time to get us to Georgia here, but it can be done collectively with all of us working together, maximizing resources, but we've got to help educate people about the process itself as well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are getting close to wrapping up, but so what's next in Georgia? I think it was Deborah, somebody mentioned. I think the state legislature session is in Georgia, I believe, started this week. So we know there's a mayor's race and a city council race in Atlanta. So what's next? What's happening in 2021? How are you all going to continue to build that power? We know that there's a concern about voter suppression laws being passed to make sure that whatever happened this year can't happen again, as they always tend to do, those who don't believe in inclusive democracy. And that the redistricting lines, all the hard work that you all and many of us collectively did around the census, and we know that that's going to impact power, ability to build power in the future. So what's next? And again, anyone who wants to jump in and start talking about that, go.
What's next?
Again.
What's next, Melanie, is we got to do it again. Everything we've done in the past, the cycle starts over. It's 365. Redistricting is very critical. Fighting our legislature now to take back, they're trying to take back vote by mail because we now trust it, because we've used it to our advantage during COVID. They want to make it difficult. We got to fight those kinds of things. They want to do away with drop boxes, even though despite the mail system being corrupt and not really functioning as the way it should be. So there are things that we have to do. We have all of the local races, not just in Atlanta, but these are local races. So the cycle repeats itself. That's why we can't get tired. We have to continue. This is 365. It's not a 4-week cycle. It's not an 8-week cycle. It's 365 days. We've got to register again. We've got to educate again, but we've got to draw our own maps. We cannot allow our legislators to draw their maps because they want to put in who they want in their districts, not who should be together. We've got to draw our own maps. So now we begin the process of training people how to draw our maps, how to really present legally, because it's going to be a legal battle. So we've got to get with our lawyer friends. We've got to be engaged. We've got to do everything we can to make sure our power remains. And we are the only ones that can ensure that process.
So Melanie.
Thank you, Helen.
Melanie, we have to be clear about what we're dealing with, because every time the Black community has made a significant leap, right, there has been a backlash, and typically a very violent backlash. And so now we've achieved a place where we have a Black South Asian woman heading our government, second in line. We have demonstrated power from the South. So as we're doing the practical things that Helen Butler mentioned, we need to be aware this is exactly 100 years after Tulsa. So to our young colleagues, I said, look, there has been another kind of cycle that has challenged Black advancement since the beginning. So, but it's not this time. So part of what Black women did in our organizing from early in the year, we don't get a lot of credit for that, but we've been organized for this election cycle collectively, nationally, since its inception. And as a result, we see ourselves reflected and we see ourselves in position. But to the young people, I say that we have to be aware and stay woke, because there are going to be efforts at the state level and nationally. And what we saw last week could be possibly only a tip, because there's always been a contingent of this country that thinks we should not have, we should not be. So I think that is, I was sad to see what happened, but that resonates with my heart and spirit, given all the work that we've done. And we never do anything fraudulent. We have so many more Black people that we can get legally, we would have no need to. So I just share that with any audience, and certainly with my colleagues on this Zoom.
Okay. Anyone else?
Also, what we're doing is we're making sure that we are staying active, not just in the voter registration process, not just in the turning out the vote process, but making sure that we are active when it comes to transportation equity, housing equity, making sure that we're holding these elected officials accountable that we put in place. A lot of times when we think back to last week and what happened, that's something that's set in place that a lot of people would like to use to muddle over and to stop the progress of what's happening, but we also understand that democracy still wins. So as the people, we have to continue what we have to do to uphold democracy. So that's holding candidate forums, that's leadership development, that's making sure that we are empowering our youth, employing employing interns, employing organizers, and teaching other people, teaching how we can do these, holding candidate forums, holding just round tables. So conversations like this, keeping it going, and don't lose that momentum until 2 years from now, or even the next statewide election. Staying on it, making sure we're not only building the coalitions with each other and organizations, but building coalitions with groups and community grassroots organizations that are in their communities looking for, they're having that hidden talent, as we like to say, that secret sauce, and empowering them that they have the power and that they do have that leadership that they possess to be that community that we all know that we have.
Thank you.
What we want is contracts. So just one
right?
word to go top to
Economic
bottom.
power.
HBCUs contracts, Black women contracts, Black business contracts. That's what we want.
Thank you. Thank you. I know I don't want to bring this up, but we have to bring it up. Y'all brought it up indirectly a little bit. But you know what happened last Wednesday? We know that one of the things that we know Black folks voted because we knew that we have to deal with the racial injustice in this country and the systemic racism. We know that white nationalism under this president has increased. But I would never have been prepared to see what happened last Wednesday. We saw it happening. Those of us, many of y'all right here, know what it is to see a problem about to explode. When you can look and watch the television and see where are the cops. It's not new. We knew they were coming. They didn't get here that Wednesday. They were here already. I was downtown DC in my office. They were already here on Monday. So how did you not prepare federal government? Because I just be real clear. The mayor of DC, a sister, Black woman leader, she did her job. You didn't have that happening on the streets of DC. When you walk on the lands on the federal property of where the Capitol is, that's federal. That's Capitol Police. That's the federal government. That's why we need DC statehood, by the way, so that she has the power to call on the National Guard and they respond to her. She has to go to whoever the mayor is of the District of Columbia has to go to the president. And we know this president is not interested in statehood and respecting Black folks. So we know that was a coup. And now, you've had 5 people who died and one who just committed suicide, another police officer the other day. We know people were attacked, not just here in the Capitol, but people were attacked, young sister in LA. We heard about another young couple that were attacked. We know there were things that were happening simultaneously where you had white nationalists and racists, and that's what they were. People say, well, how do you know that? All you had to do was look at the signs, look at what they're wearing, look at the church, look at what they were saying. They were white nationalists and racists, and that's what they were and are. But I don't believe, having lived as long as I have and been from my state of Florida, where 2 seconds from the KKK, they're not going back that gene is not going right back in the box. So how does that affect our democracy moving forward? You talked about it. We take 2 steps, there's always a backlash. That backlash is not going away. So how do you see us protecting our rights, our vote, our lives in this time? And we can do that really quickly. I'll start off with whoever hasn't spoken already. So I think that would be Mary Pat, if she's still on, and Jared, and then we go from there.
I have to be honest with you. Tomorrow will mark, I guess, a week from what we saw on television, and I am traumatized by what I saw in DC. This is something, after the progress that this country has made, I thought that I would have read in a textbook, not actually have seen on TV in my time, in my day. So I unfortunately can't speak about how this will affect the democratic process comprehensively. I can speak from the place of one who's spoken to other young people who are also traumatized by what they saw. And I can say that young people are more encouraged and empowered because they saw that the face of white nationalism has made itself bare and intentionally did that to send a message. And that if they don't respond the way that they can and should by getting out there and voting, by engaging and even getting into politics, running for office, figuring out what they can do at the local level to be involved in politics, then their agenda to make America great again will succeed, will work. But if they just get out there and make it happen, then we can actually see some type of progress. So I can only speak from a 23-year-old traumatized place watching what I saw. It was traumatizing. But I believe that Black people woke up, young people specifically, woke up and said, wow, insurrection happened. They tried to overthrow the government because of an election not going their way versus us young people.
Because Black folks showed up and showed out.
Yep.
Clear.
Absolutely.
They say we want to take our country back from who? This is our capital. We built it.
Yes.
We built all them buildings. So if you want to talk about who owns it, we all own it. So they showed, they say the enemy never sleeps. Well, that enemy has never left this country, because that's why it was based on, snatching land from others and enslaving us. But but our power is still as strong. But I would rather see it than it be when I can't see it and it's hitting me and I can't see. They showed us. Mm-hmm. And don't feel bad that you feel traumatized. I'm traumatized. We all traumatized, because I'm like, okay. I'm not going to fight, but we have to be smart and know what we're dealing with. And I thank you for being open about that. Anyone next? And then
I just wanted to jump in on that.
Open up if there's any media that's still there that would like to ask a question. If they could put their questions in the chat or in the Q&A. If you're still there and would like to ask a question, we have one more question. We're going to come to anyone in the media. Thank you. Go ahead.
So Mel, I just wanted to get in on that. I really don't want us to take what happened last week for granted. There's a lot of white rage and white madness, if you will, that's out there. And so we as nonprofits, as social justice organizations, we have to be vigilant about making sure that our family and our friends and our community and our organizations are safe. So we should not take it for granted. So when we look at this calendar that's coming up now between Martin Luther King's birthday and inauguration, from the 15th through the 21st, we all need to be on high alert. And so that's the first thing, is safety first. We have to make sure that we're safe so that we can live to fight again, right? The second thing is, this is a absolutely great opportunity to teach democracy and to teach civics. They took it out of the schools. And so we have to go back to the basics so that people understand how government is supposed to work and what the role of government is supposed to be. But as we're crafting our agenda for 2021, we need to make sure that our sister vice president is safe. So even if it means canceling all the pomp and ceremony and taking them down in the bunker and getting her and them sworn in, we need them to lead. So I'm in favor of dropping all of that, keep them safe, get this one out of office, and make sure we have a stabilized economy. They should put all of that inauguration money into COVID vaccines. That's what they should do.
Thank you, Deborah. Anyone else want in on that question?
I just want to add that, we see that, and we know that was an attack on democracy. So that had nothing to do with partisan issues, Republican versus Democrat. That really was just an attack for the process that had already been done. As we said, we saw Black people, we saw even white people got out to vote. They did what they had to do. The ballots had been cast, the votes had been already done. And so to think that this process that we had worked so hard to have so many people trust into, for the first time, for many people, first time them getting out to vote, was challenged for doing what we have been telling them was the right thing to do, was to get out to vote. That is the part that is just so scary to me, that when doing all this work, having somebody challenge that. But at the end of the day, knowing that the work is still being done, and having people in there that wanted to say, we are not going to sit this out. We are going to let the Electoral College do what it needs to do, and really made a stance in doing that. That is something that we can learn down into the States, down in Georgia, is to continue the work and don't let it stop. Continue to have these agendas, continue to have this momentum, and continue to let democracy do what democracy has to do. So I look forward, just even working, just making sure that we are ensuring people that not only even on this federal level, because we saw so many people out there that were on state level, city officials, state officials from different states that promoted things like that, making sure that as people, we tell everyone else in the communities that we're dealing with that we have to hold these same people accountable, and we have to show them that the South has something to say, like Andre 3000 said.
Melanie, I think that we can't let these people get by and not hold them accountable. Everyone should be accountable for your action. And more importantly, we should hold our elected officials, who are supposed to represent all people, not just a segment of people, accountable. And they have to make sure that there is accountability for those actions on January the 6th. If they're not, they don't want to take action, then we have to take action at the ballot box when they come back to the districts.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much. We're going to open it up for questions. We have one question in the queue from Hamil Harris with Washington Informer. And his question is, how are we planning to take this moment in Georgia to a nationwide movement to inspire people, even though people are fearful because of January 6th? I'll start off with that. One way is that they're voting to impeach this president. So people out there need to make sure they call their House of Representative members, make sure they're going to vote for impeachment or the 25th Amendment, whatever needs to be done to remove this current president who incited violence from the office of President of the United States. He does not deserve to be president of the United States. That's not a partisan issue. That's a factual issue. The very person who swore an oath to protect the Constitution and to lead our government incited a riot and a mob to go and kill people in order for the vote not to be counted. That is treasonous. The very government you're leading, you're trying to destroy. So that's one, and that's going on right now. So that's my take on it. We have to speak up now and make sure our elected officials know what to do. And even if they, and the other part of it is that the senators as well. So with the House impeaches, the Senate does what? They convict. It's in our faces. And if nothing else, you want to make sure this never happens again in our lifetime or beyond. Anybody else real quickly? And if there are any other questions, please put them in the queue.
I want people to understand that Georgia was national. So Black people doing Georgia, that was national. Mm-hmm. So when they went at our sisters and brothers in Pennsylvania, and when they went at our sisters and brothers in Michigan, our sisters and brothers in Georgia had something to say about it. And we said it at the polls. So it's not like this is new. What's new is that we realized an unexpected victory. We always knew it was possible. What was also new is we got additional resources. So we got treated a little bit like a battleground. But going forward, we always here in Georgia anyway, Melanie, you in the South and the rest of us, we have always seen those horns rolling around. We've always had that suppressive threat. We have a victory and a moment, sending a Black man to the Senate without being partisan. I am Black, sending a Black man to the Senate, sending a Black woman to the White House. Those are two powerful things. And we have to leverage and support these people. Already, our MVP, Madam Vice President elect, is already taking fire unnecessarily. But Black people, we are mobilized nationally to support the people we've sent and then hold them accountable.
Thank you.
Yeah, I
Felicia.
think
Anyone
that's.
else?
I'm sorry, Mel. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think what Felicia and Helen are and Mel, you're really saying is, one, we have to continue the work and fight on the ground. But and to the point of Black men, we appreciate Black men. Although Black women are having this celebratory moment, we can't do nothing without the brothers. So whether it's John Taylor, Hank Stewart, Cliff Albright, Joe Caldwell, brothers have, and of course Jared, brothers have stood by us, held us up. I have a little squad at Stand Up. I tell you, I can't do nothing without those brothers. So no slight to any of the brothers, Mr. Scott and all the brothers that support us. We appreciate that. But at this moment, we need to be also clear that our safety is at danger, in danger. But we have the Second Amendment. And so we need to be clear that we need to protect our families.
That's for Black people too, right? Is that what
exactly?
You're saying?
And that may look different, and people don't want to necessarily hear about Black people carrying guns, but we are in the South, right? And so what I say is protect yourself and your families first. But the other thing to it is our democracy is at stake, but we have an opportunity. We won, y'all. We have an opportunity to change policy and to change the way this country is operating. And so that means we have to make sure that there's a progressive agenda that they can speak to. So whether it's the John Lewis Act, whether it's the George Floyd Act, whether it's all of these voter suppression pieces that we have to kill, this is the time for the policy discussion and the policy agenda, supporting Congressional Black Caucus, supporting Win with Black Women, other women that are out there, Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright. We need to come together in a way that we never have been before, because they're scared of us, y'all. They're scared, and they should be, because if you do right by people, you won't have to fear them being in power. We are a gracious and an honorable people. We're not going to do you like you did us, but we're going to take care of our people. And so whether it's the Biden administration or white supremacy, we need to make sure that we're clear that the Black community is unified and will stay unified for our own survival.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's a great way to end that, right? Any other, we got to give it one round of questions. One other thing, Deborah, you brought it up, because the fact of the matter is, when Hamil, that with that question, we have to go ahead and cash in for not, and I'm not saying that lightly, but people vote for a reason. And so we have to push in these first 100 days and challenge this administration, challenge the Congress to make sure that they can walk and chew gum, right? And in the first 100 days, we should see real substantive change. We should see whatever you can do through executive action. We should see, and we have to also make sure that there's no guarantee that the people who have been nominated. So we are going to be pushing to help make sure people get go through the Senate process and are confirmed. We know there's a lot of damage that was done to the federal government. You are missing the fact that we need to be engaging not just what's going on in Washington, D.C. Federal government is in everybody's community. And so those who are out there, you have regional offices, you have the local federal offices that are in your communities. So make sure that you engage these folks who got in office or who were reelected or newly elected to actually hold them accountable. And so they say, make me do it. What the former president way back said? Make me do it. We have to make elections do. There's nothing new about that. That means I can like you, right? More respect. I want you to respect my vote and respect my community and what we did to make sure that those issues that we voted for are addressed. And we know there were life or death issues. Number one issue again was issues around racism, ending and eradicating structural racism, dealing with criminal justice reform, policing reform, addressing COVID-19 and the systemic impact of health disparities and how we're dying more than others, how they're dealing with the vaccine. All these things have to be addressed. You brought it up, Deborah, the George Floyd and Policing Act, the John Lewis Voting Reform Act. They decimated our voting rights. And so we have to stay vigilant. We have to stay protected. Just because I'm traumatized don't mean that we're not going to fight. Our ancestors took more than what we're looking at, right? So we know we got to take that and run with it. Hamil asked one more question. Oh, and then to make sure that if you want to follow us, follow the National Coalition and all of our partners as well, to follow us at ncbcp.org. My staff is going to be like, you never told them how to follow us. But make sure that you follow us and make sure we will connect you to all of our state leaders that are here today and leaders that live in states. Because in far as I'm concerned, there's no such thing as a state leader and a national leader. We're just leaders in the space, and we're servants in the space. So leaders who live in certain states. But Emil's next question is: are there plans to network with leaders of Black Lives Matter to help them organize in a well? This is not my question. So this is Hamil, the reporter's question. So Hamil, you say in a better way and be part of other civil rights groups. I think that Black Lives Matter, I'm going to respond to that. I think they're organizing the way Black Lives Matter does. And I think that they connected very much so to not just protest, but policy and the vote. And then I think in some cases on the local level, especially, people are working together across some of those lines, some of our newer organizations, some of our seasoned organizations. And that's what coalition is about. Always having an ability to have folks find a way to work together at tables. And we're not going to agree on everything. Our tactics won't always be the same. But I'll let one or two people ask that question.
Melanie,
that's already happening.
It's really important to mention for Hamil and others the critical importance of our historically Black colleges and universities. So if you look at Gen Z leadership, or if you look at leadership ascending, the role of Black HBCUs in not only generating and grooming talent, but also dealing with issues, policies, and etc. So if I'm looking at whether it is Black Lives Matter, whether it's Black Voters Matter, whether it is strategically our anchor, in addition to our venerated civil rights organizations and the new organizations, the other anchor we can lean on and count on to bring things together are our HBCUs, and really providing more support to that base will develop our communities, will develop our young people, and will develop our agenda more robustly.
Thank you. One or two more responses and we'll close out on time. Anyone else?
Well, Melanie, I think coalition means you bring in all different kinds of coalitions. Black Lives Matter is a part of our coalition. Young people are working in our coalition. So it's not that we're separate. It's things that we agree on. Like you said, Melanie, we agree on those, we work on those that we agree on together, and we work. And that's what a coalition means. And we don't leave out anyone. We take in the entire tent. It's not for us to say who does something better than the other. It's for us to learn from each other. And that way we become the best that we can be.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so very much. We're going to close out on time. I thank you all again. I salute you for all of the hard work and dedication and leadership that you already were showing, but you really showed out in 2020 in a way that we will always, all of us, will be forever grateful. Thank you, Georgia. Georgia on our mind yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So we'll stay connected. Thanks again.
And thank you, Melanie, for your leadership.
And thank you again, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Thank you for all of our team at the National Coalition behind the scenes. They're getting it done. And you know who you are. I appreciate you. And see you next time.
Thank you.